Hey, Rachel, welcome to the His and Her Money
Hello,
Show.
Rachel.
Hello, Ty and Talent. I'm so
Hey.
excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited to have you. We feel like we're old friends. We've been
Yes.
following you for years on YouTube. Well, I can say I have. Like, I love her channel. So, and I have been following your journey. And so I was so excited that you reached out to us and you wanted to be a part of our new series. It's called In the Middle. So for those of you guys who may not have crossed the finish line, becoming debt free, we said, you know what? That there's, roses throughout the journey. People can learn from your experience. And so we are so excited to have you on In the Middle. So we're going to be talking about her In the Middle story.
Yeah, but before we jump into your story, can you just say hello to everyone that is tuned in right now and let them know what you are all about?
All right. Okay. Hello, His and Her Money followers. I am also a His and Her Money follower. I love you guys. My name is Rachel, and I have a YouTube channel called Sweet and Simple Home. But beyond that, I am a wife and mother to 3 beautiful kids. And I serve my community in many ways, but I love making videos and sharing with you my journey in my sweet and simple home. So that's who I am and what I do.
Awesome. So let's get started. Tell everybody a little bit about your financial journey. I guess you could tell them how much you guys still owe, how much have you paid off, and in what time frame did you pay it off?
Okay, so our journey has been a long one. And so we started shortly after we first got married about 13 years ago, because we're going on 14 years now. And we had a lot of bumps along the way. We paid off $80,000. And that's not including all the interest and stuff. That would take a lot of math for me to figure out, but about $80,000 in consumer debt. And we have our mortgage in front of us, which is about 100,000. So we feel like we've hit that close to halfway mark now. So it feels really good to be at this point. But it's been a long and sometimes very discouraging journey. So I hope that I can encourage those that have had a longer journey, that there is still hope as you go along.
That's why I'm so excited that you're sharing your story, because I think that it's the norm. I think there's a lot more people out there who this is very much so a long journey, and they do get discouraged and like, well, how are people paying off all this money in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And so I think that's the beauty in your story, to show that you guys are still chipping away at it. Although you've had many obstacles, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, you guys are still very much so focused minded on your big end goal, which is to become completely debt free.
Yes.
So talk to us about the beginning. Let's rewind the clock.
Okay.
You said you all got married about 13 years ago, and that's how the story began. Talk to us about what was happening 13 years ago and what was like the eye-opening moment that made you and your husband realize that maybe we're not doing this money thing the right way.
Well, we were newly married, and we were married while we were still in college. We were only 21, and I had been really like budget conscious all through college, trying to take the least amount of debt as possible. My parents, although wonderful, hardworking people, didn't have anything to bless me with when I had to go pay for school. So that came out of my pocket. So I was very diligent and hardworking, and it sort of reminds me of some of the things that you guys talk about, like that he maybe my husband had some financial stuff that he didn't really even know about. It wasn't that he was hiding it from me, but he didn't know how much debt he had. So after we married and then we graduated and all those like loan notifications started coming in, oh my goodness, So I had a little bit, but my husband had a lot. And we also ended up buying a car with debt. Oh, so many regrets. But so we were looking at just being newly married and having like over $40,000 in debt. And we didn't have a house, we didn't have jobs, we didn't have a family yet. We wanted a family, but staring at that huge pile of debt without any prospects was very scary to us. So it was like out of fear, I guess, that we really dove into paying off debt, because it just felt like insurmountable, like this obstacle that was going to hold us back from that dream of having a family, of ultimately serving in ministry, which is what we do. So
yeah. So what actually started your journey? Okay, so now you guys are married. Now the loan notices are coming in. What was it that actually made you guys say, you know what, we need to come up with a plan and we need to start knocking out this debt?
Well, a friend of mine, I shared these fears with a friend of mine, and she handed me Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace. And I read it and I told my husband about it. And he's like, you know what? I heard he's coming to Portland. We lived in the Portland area at the time. Let's go watch his little presentation. And that just like made it clear to him the importance of our journey. And it brought us together really as a team to go and hear his words and to hear his reasoning behind it. And also, you know, for us with our faith to hear the biblical verses and the encouragement from God's word to pursue a life without debt. So that really was the trigger for us as a team.
So once you all got triggered, you read the book, he got triggered at the presentation that you all went to. What was the situation like for you all then? Because I'm assuming that you all were still very young and still trying to figure out life as an adult, trying to figure out how to be a husband and a wife, trying to start new careers. So paint the picture. What was going on in the backdrop at the moment that you all both had the same idea to get your finances in order? Was everything like lined up perfectly for this?
Well, I felt like initially we had a lot of momentum. We still hadn't had a baby yet, though we wanted to. I faced a lot of infertility, and that's heartbreaking, but I also just had to trust in the Lord and his timing. And, you know, we did a lot of praying during those years and just asking God for wisdom because we did not have it. And, you know, we really looked to God's word. We read every book we could find on financial, Christian financial advice. I started following blogs that did couponing. I got really into that couponing in the 2000s. That was all the thing, right? So I got really into that, and we both got teaching jobs, and I was really blessed to get a contract within the first couple of years of being a teacher. That was a big deal in our area. Then shortly after, my husband got a contract in it. We paid off the car, and it was just like we felt like this huge amount of blessing, even though we were still waiting for that baby and still trusting God with our family. Like it just became about seeking wisdom and living in obedience. And it was just the two of us, so it was easy to live on a small budget, you know. And once we did start our family, that became when it got trickier because that was in 2009. And I'm sure if you guys remember 2009, like that was when everything kind of blew up, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, like the housing market. Our school district cut the budget by over $11 million. So all the new teachers lost their contracts, me and my husband. And here we are with a baby on the way and no jobs. Again, no jobs. We still had debt in front of us and we still weren't homeowners. We still, you know, felt really like a heaviness when it came to finances now because there was a baby coming. You know, we were getting our family. And I think especially my husband felt that weight that that there needed to be more change in how we lived. And he at the time had been going to seminary in Portland, a part-time teaching, part-time seminary, and we were cash flowing that, and that was wonderful. And so when we lost our contracts, he started applying for youth pastor positions that in the area. And we called my pastor from my childhood and asked for a recommendation from him. And he came to our door all the way down in Portland a week later and was like, we want to offer you a job. So it was just all so orchestrated by the Lord. I mean, looking back, there's no way that it was anything we did, you know, that we just kind of had to hand our lives to God and say, we're going to be obedient and trust you. This is really scary, but you're bigger and you have the best for us. So it just became, again, about God's word and obedience. And my husband took that job. It didn't pay very much, but moving to a small town, I mean, I live in rural Washington. I mean, it's tiny, but so that means the expenses are lower. But we started our family here. And
the key word that you said was obedience. And
yeah.
I can't help but to think that if you guys did not start becoming wise stewards over the money that God has entrusted you guys with, that when you all would have lost these jobs and so many different obstacles hit your way, it could have very, very well been much worse than it was, you know? And I think talk about that. Talk about the fact that you guys were already in the habit of paying off debt, already in the habit of changing your mindset. So when obstacles did come, yeah, you might have had to pause a little bit, but you were able to readjust and get back on track.
Right. I shudder to think of what it would have been like if we hadn't have been following this path to debt freedom early on. Like, I shudder to think of what it would have been like when my daughter Molly was born. Um, I feel like that is also God in His grace for us, like leading us to that Dave Ramsey, having that friend who handed me that book. All of it so timed and orchestrated for us to be able to start our family when we did and to go into ministry full time when we did. I mean, we were so young, and that's really hard to do. Especially, you know, we live in a rural area, and it's not like you come here to get these huge promotions and bonuses and raises. You come here because you have a heart for the people. And so it became the paying off our debt became a way that we served. You know, we served God. The more that we paid off debt, the more jobs that became doable for us to have. I mean, to take a job that doesn't pay very much, we couldn't have done that if we still had the car payment and the other student loan and stuff that we had knocked out before my daughter was born. So it also gave us the opportunity for me to stay home with Molly. That was really, really important to me. I knew that it might not be a possibility when I was pregnant with her. But again, God in His grace allowed us to really tighten down the budget. I mean, we had a tight budget before, but it was like super tight by the time she came along. And, you know, I did all the things. I coupons, I shopped yard sales, I did cloth diapers. I just really became a little bit more of a minimalist, to be honest. And that just really helped us to be able to exist in this tighter budget, in this service oriented position that we had, and to continue to be obedient to pay off debt. And sometimes it was only literally like a couple dollars extra towards debt, but we were still making progress, and we didn't turn our noses at that. $2 to debt, praise the Lord, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, I
So
love it. I think what I love most about even following your channel, for those of you guys who do not know who she is on YouTube, we will make sure that we will have a link in the description box as well as in the show notes. But for those that are watching this right now via video, you can kind of see the backdrop of your home and a lot of things you thrift, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Like you are, to
aw,
me, you are a very resourceful woman. And
thank you.
that's what I admire most about you. You were able to still make your surroundings beautiful for your family. And money didn't necessarily, wasn't like you had to have a lot of money coming in. So talk about that resourcefulness. I know that you mentioned that you shopped at thrift stores and things like that. You cut back the budget. Talk about that a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah. So I started yard selling when my daughter was born, and it just became such a love for me. I also go to thrift stores, but for me, my first love is yard sales. And I share a lot of yard sale hauls on my channel because I just love it so much. But yeah, I learned that it doesn't take a lot of money to make your home beautiful. And our first home that we had with her was not pretty. And I learned so much about how to decorate on a budget, and how that, you know, you can just love the home that you have with a few dollars and a little bit of paint and creativity. And that's one of the reasons why I started my channel, was because I felt like there were a lot of people like me that maybe were just discouraged that there's not a lot you can do when you literally only have like a $5 budget to decorate with. Like, what can you do with that? So much when you thrift and yard sale, because $5 goes a long way when a cute piece of decor is only 25 cents. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
And I even like the mentality that
That's,
goes
yeah.
behind that,
Yep.
because I think that, I mean, the Bible talks about it, you know, because you were faithful over few, I will make you ruler over many. And I think we oftentimes have an idea of where we want to get to in life, and we can tend to focus on that place that we want to get to the point that we don't appreciate the place that we're at. And I think that your story is phenomenal because, like my wife said, you all, although you all had this big goal that you're still going up against, you're taking time to not only live in the present, but show God that you appreciate what you have here and now, and you're maximizing. You're not complaining. You're not in a woe as me that you know, I mean, get to the promised land one day. But you and your husband are showing that whatever I have now, like even your mentality, or like not too long ago, you said if it was just $1 or $2, praise God for that. Like that's a mentality that I don't care how much debt you're going up against. I don't care how much income you have. If you don't have that type of mentality, thank God that I can send $1 to make the situation better. I think you're fighting without a key weapon, and that's a grateful heart.
Yeah, a lot of people look at us of paying off our home like, how in the world did they pay off $330,000 in 5 years? It's still shocking to us. But we know because we live by the principles of the Bible. When we started paying off our mortgage, all we had was an extra $20.
$20.
So please, you all, don't despise the day of small beginnings. Don't despise the little in your eyes.
Go ahead and
think
preach.
is little. I'm gonna preach. Okay.
Go ahead and preach then.
You know, but don't despise that. You have an extra $5, an extra $10, an extra $2. That's still money that can be sent to your debt to pay it off. And I love that about your story. So talk about where you guys are now. All the obstacles that you guys overcame, and you guys are still on the journey. How much more debt do you have left to pay off, not including the house?
That's all that's left.
So we knocked out the consumer debt. So we are just facing the house now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So they knocked out all their consumer debt. And so what's the plan for the home?
Okay. So our hope, and you know, obviously it's in the Lord's hands, but our daughter is going into 5th grade, and our hope is by the time she graduates high school, we will have it all the way paid off. And, you know, if God does it sooner, that'd be great.
Yes.
And I say God does it because, you know, we work in ministry. My husband is a principal at a Christian school in a rural area. So it's just a lot of obedience still to this day. We had some other things after, you know, we had some medical things that happened. My husband had to have his gallbladder out, and we had to pay for all that. And we've had things like our car that broke down completely. We had to replace it before we were financially ready. I mean, we've just had all those sorts of things, and it can feel like a wave of like stress and fear. And you can really go back to that place where you forget all that God has done, and you have to look and go, okay, this, you know, that the song "Here I Raise My Ebenezer," you know, I would just have to sing that to myself, like, I'm raising this, that we're planting this here in the ground, that God has been faithful and he will continue to be faithful. So moving forward, that's our hope, that, you know, we can just continue. It's a million little decisions a day that bring you to paying off your debt. And that's why I love you guys. Like, I remember watching you guys one time, and you said something like, Talit had stopped to do like one of those, you know, when you eat something, mystery shopping. Yes, thank you. And it was like $5 towards the mortgage.
Yep.
And Nathan's my husband name. Nathan and I high five, like, yeah, like that's sort of what we do and say to each other. So we love that about you guys. So it's so fun to me to be on this end too, because I can't tell you how many times when I was discouraged about where we were, I would go for a walk, I would put you guys in my ears, my podcast, and I would listen and I would just pray as I was listening to you guys. And to now be sitting here and be the one to hopefully be providing encouragement for someone else who's sitting there needing it, I can't even tell you what an honor. Like, it just makes me want to cry, honestly, because it's just another testimony, another Ebenezer of God's faithfulness. So I'm just so grateful to be here.
Oh, wow. Your story is going to bless so many. You're already blessing a lot now, but after they hear your story, they're going to be very inspired, very encouraged. I love how you said it's a million decisions every day that you have to make. And I love how you guys have a plan. Your daughter's in 5th grade, and you guys have a plan that by the time she graduates high school, that your home will be paid off. And so that means that you guys are putting forth making decisions every single day,
Mhm.
right? Every single day to get towards that goal. What are some of the things that you all have in place now? I'm sure the budget is one thing.
Yeah.
How are you guys maximizing the income? Because your husband works outside of the home and you
Yes.
are inside of the home with the children working, and you have your YouTube channel. So, what are the little things that you guys are putting in place to be able to knock that out?
Okay, so my husband has this joke that if he leaves anything out on the counter too long, I'll put it on eBay. So, and it's kind of true. I do sell a lot of our stuff. I do consignment sales, like those big consignment sales for kids stuff. So twice a year, I'll do a big declutter. I really love decluttering. And so I'll go through and all the things that they've outgrown, don't play with, don't enjoy, they go in the consignment sale. And I also really love using things like Poshmark and Facebook Marketplace. I am constantly listing things. My goal is to always have at least 5 things listed all times. And that's just something I do on the side. I did work part-time for a couple years teaching music at my kids' school. They were looking for somebody to take up a full-time, and I couldn't do that. So I still have a toddler, so we couldn't do full-time. So I resigned, and I'm actually kind of grateful because it gives me more time to work on my YouTube channel because that is my fun little hobby. And it's so crazy because when I started it, I didn't know you could monetize. I didn't know that. And so over time, when I figured that out, I was like, what? I can actually make a little money here? That's great. So I'm still on the smaller side as far as YouTube goes, but I just, anytime that anything comes in from that, it's just like a sweet little blessing because I love sharing on YouTube. And so that's definitely something we do. And my husband also does weddings, and he occasionally will preach for other churches when they need fill-in preachers because he does still enjoy that, even though he is the principal at the school. So, and oftentimes they'll give him like a thank you gift for that, and that all goes in the pot towards the mortgage, towards the debt. So we're grateful for all those little things. And as much as I love to yard sale, I also love to have yard sales. So we try to do that as well.
Love reading, but wish you had more time to get into your favorite books? What if you could use the time you already have and listen to the books you already love? Well, now you can with Audible. With Audible books, you can be inspired, entertained, and educated anywhere, anytime. Choose from the bestsellers in self-development, business, nonfiction, and more. So what are you waiting for? Your first 30 days are free. Visit hisandhermoney.com/audible to get started today. That's hisandhermoney.com/audible.
Yeah, I think it was your video on the children's consignment that actually got me like going because there are different consignment shops in the area. How do you actually do your consignment shops? I know there's somebody probably listening there like, okay, well, how do you do that? My kids have a ton of clothing. How do I host a consignment sale?
Okay, so I there's a couple different ways to do this. So there's consignment stores that usually you bring your clothes to them
I've tried
and they
that.
will pay you for cash, or they pay you as they sell a percentage of it. There's also large consignment events, and that's really where I focus my time and energy because they're usually like a week long. And the people who come are people who like shopping secondhand and want to get the best deals, and it's all for kid stuff. So you're getting like the perfect audience to resell your used kid stuff. So I really like those. There's a couple in my area, and I do all of them. And I'm really excited because I got to, I get to know the other moms. I get to know the lady who runs the sale, and I've established such great friendships with these people as well. So we have each other's backs and we shop each other's stuff, and I just feel like it's a great community thing as well because you get to connect with other moms. Um, but basically, the events usually happen once in the fall and once in the spring. So you have all your winter and fall gear in the fall sale, and even like Christmas dresses and all those sorts of things. And then in the spring, you can do your baseball uniforms, your swimsuits, and all of the little toddler flotation devices, all those things. Like, it's crazy the things that you can sell, even kids' room decor, craft supplies. You have even put some of my shoes in there because that can go towards the juniors department, meaning women's shoes. So There's lots of things that you
Is
can
there a
sell.
website? Is there a website that people can go to find if there's one in their area and they can make a little
Yeah.
extra bucks, or even purchase clothing? Just that even helps save money because our kids are
Yes.
always growing.
They won't
And
stop.
yeah, we're always purchasing for them. So I think that that's a huge resource for someone that may not know.
Yeah. So I always recommend the website consignmentmommies.com. And they have a database of all the different consignment sales across the country. So wherever you live, I don't know if they go outside of the US, but if you live in the US, they could have some resources for you. And then you can then go to those consignment sale websites and find out all the information, the dates, drop off times. Different consignment sales will have different rules about how to attach any tags or, prices to your items. So it's good to go to those websites too and find them out. But also connect with other moms because other moms in your area might know. So
Awesome. How have you all bounced back or not allowed discouragement to set in? Because listening to your story, there have been several instances. I mean, you both basically got pink slips at the same time with a brand new baby, the baby that you all have been praying and asking God for on the way. And then he gets a job, but it doesn't pay that much. And, there's just all these things that
$14,000 medical expense.
yeah, the medical expense. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities to say, you know what, let's stop.
This will never happen. Yeah,
This
let's
isn't
just give up. This will
working.
never happen. Let's just live our lives.
Because I'm sure that there are people listening who have, their own set of circumstances, and man, they are really thinking like this is just too much to overcome. How come you all were able to not give up and continue moving forward?
I think that's a really great question. And I don't want to pretend like I've always handled that well because I remember distinctly looking at my husband and saying, I feel like God's forgotten us. So it makes me emotional just remembering that time because I know that's not true, but I remember that feeling. And I'm sure there's people listening who feel that way, that feel forgotten, that feel unseen. Especially if you have a service-oriented job or you choose as a woman to be home with your babies. I feel like that is such a noble calling. And so when you step into those places of obedience and then you face obstacle after obstacle and you hear these people paying off their debt in a year and you're just like, oh my gosh, that could never be me. And I just remember struggling with that, and you'll never know what it was that really helped me. We love C.S. Lewis's books in our family. We even named our son Clive after him. But there is a bit in one of his books, one of his Narnia books, where he tells Lucy, one of the characters, that she doesn't need to worry about anyone else's story. This is your story, and this is for you, only you. Don't worry about these other people's stories. And I remember my husband was reading out loud to Molly, and I was just like, oh, that's for me. That's for me. I was paying attention to all the other stories and forgetting that God's still writing mine. He's still writing our financial story even today. And so I feel like there are times when the emotion of it, the stress of it can be overwhelming. But when you scrape all that away, God is still there. God is still working. And I feel like really looking to those moments where you had victory, looking back to those moments and remembering the truths and the faithfulness of the Lord in the past really can help carry you through to the beginning or to the future. I mean, I know that I talk a lot about our faith, but that's what has driven us through this whole thing, this whole time has been our faith, our trust in God and his plan for our lives, and that he is our provider. Literally, our paycheck comes from people who give. So we trust him for all of those things, from food to diapers to debt. It has to all be in his hands. It can't be partly in mine, partly in his. It has to be all in his hands. And so in those moments of discouragement where I felt forgotten, I was not. I was not forgotten. And I think it's important to have those stories, those Bible verses, those even friendships that pull you back and remind you of where you are, what is actually true in the circumstance, and for us, that God will be faithful.
Yeah,
So
I love that. I was holding back tears as you were talking because I felt that so true. So many times in our lives, it can feel like God has forgotten us, but He has not.
yeah.
And He is
Mhm.
writing your story, and your story is going to be a testament and a testimony to so many others that feel stuck, and so it's not in vain. It is not in vain. So tell us, how are you guys teaching your children? You all have three beautiful children. How are you all teaching them just how to handle their finances, or even your plan for you and your husband's plan for your family? What are you guys sharing with them?
Okay, well, we used to, you know, we used to be sort of like, I guess, defensive with our kids when it came to finances. We didn't want them to know that times were tight or things were hard. And so we would kind of like, oh, it's okay, like try to sprinkle sugar on it, I guess. And now we don't do that anymore. I mean, we learned from just, I guess, maybe maturity and experience as parents that it's so much better to be on the offensive when it comes to things that might feel scary to a child. So, if we're worried about a bill, like when our car broke down, we had, okay, so in February, our house flooded, a pipe burst and it flooded in the basement. And then our car broke down, like within a week's time. And it was so overwhelming. We were stressed. I mean, we were trusting the Lord, but there's just a lot of stress with those kinds of things, decisions, all this. It was just a mess. And we kept looking at our kids and going, this is how you trust the Lord. We're going to pray right now. This is how you trust the Lord. And so we take those moments where we could like sprinkle sugar on it and be like, oh, everything's fine, everything's okay, and pretend. We don't do that anymore. We say, we're overwhelmed. We need to pray together. And we hold hands and we pray. And we also, when it comes to like the practical side of things, with as far as teaching them how to handle their money, they see us give on Sundays, and we also, pay them for work they do beyond their daily helping the family. I know that some people don't like to pay their kids for chores, and I know there's controversy with that, but we have things that we expect our kids to do every day because they're part of our family. And then if they go beyond that, they will get paid. And then they take that money and they have to use it wisely. We have savings. We have the three, jars: savings, spending, and giving. So they have the three jars, but we like to go to yard sales, like I've mentioned. And so if they want to buy something, they have to spend their own money, and they cannot borrow from mommy. There is no mommy debt going on. So things like that, it's really practical to be like, is that what you want to spend your money on? Because if we go to the next yard sale and there's something you want, you can't buy it. So those sort of like practical, putting it into practice, the idea of saving and being wise with your spending, we're doing even now when they're, little kids. So
It's awesome.
yeah.
What type of impact has this journey to debt freedom had on your marriage?
Oh, well, I would say I wouldn't say that I'm trying to find the best way to say this. It has helped shape us in our obedience and in our teamwork. And when I talked about in the beginning, when we finally were brought together on the importance of paying off debt, we've rarely ever wavered from that, from that understanding that this is what God has for us. And I feel like maybe we have an easier time seeing that being in ministry, because you have to be so on the same page. Because when your husband is a pastor or a principal at a Christian school or whatever the role is, the wife, I mean, you got to be there with him. It's such a dual position, even though it's his position. I've got to be backing him up, and so in the fact that what we do is so teamwork oriented, it has actually sort of helped us to be able to serve not only just in those positions, but also at home together. My husband was the one who set up my YouTube channel and helped me get started with it. He was the one who was like, "You're doing it," and just encouraged me all the way when I told him that I had asked if I could be on your show or connected with you guys, he was like, what? Like, he was just dancing and so excited. He's just my biggest cheerleader. And when we paid off that debt, it was so funny. When we paid off the last consumer debt, and we were sitting there, we're like, this feels really weird, like we knew it was, oh, just a second, there we go. Okay, so we knew that it was a big moment, but it also didn't feel like a big moment at the same time, because there's so many more like bigger things that we've done in ministry. I don't know if I'm making sense with that, but just that teamwork becomes deeper when you allow it to permeate all areas of your marriage, and that is very true of finances. So
yeah,
Wow.
You guys are consumer debt free. I think that's huge.
I think we should celebrate that.
Congrats to that.
Huh?
That's huge.
80,000?
Yeah, that's
Out
huge.
of there.
That is huge. So what are you guys doing to? Do you guys have anything in place to make sure that you all no longer go back into consumer debt? Like, what's your approach on that in the future?
well, we are praying to the Lord that nothing else major happens, like a flood or a car breaking down. But we are working on building up that savings so that if something catastrophic like that were to happen again, there would be no need to pull out any sort of credit card at all. And we, instead of with our car payment that we no longer pay, that's savings now for the next car. And our hope is that this little car we have will be our daughter's car when it's her turn to drive. So we're keeping really good care of it because we want it to last. We're a 1-car family, by the way, and that really helps too with keeping costs down and whatnot. So we really I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's a million little things, like I said before, that got us here, and it's a million little things that'll get us to the next step. And so there's not a whole lot that has changed. With paying off consumer debt, I would say that there's even more of an importance to be obedient with our money, because now it's like before, if any extra money there came upon us, that we would just throw it at debt, like it was already determined. There was no decision making involved. Now it's like, oh, do we put it in this savings? Do we, now it feels even more important. Like, do we put it in savings? Do we put it towards a mortgage? There's like I guess a deeper responsibility now that consumer debt is gone. And we do really want to get that paid off by the time Molly graduates. So there's still like this like fire to get that gone, so that, when she's graduated, we would have the freedom by the time our boys are done, even to just sell this place and go where they go and be there for them and encourage them. And, if they have families, watch their babies so they can go have date nights, like that kind of thing. Like, I'm thinking ahead here, but that would be so great to be able to have that kind of freedom to go where they go and to go where God would want us to go. If he were to call us to missionary work overseas, that it would be no big deal, or whatever he would call us to, that we could go in obedience and have nothing holding us back financially. That is a huge dream of ours.
That's awesome. I think all of the above are incredible. Yes. So if people want to keep in touch with you as you all continue on your journey, how can people find you?
Okay, so you can find me on my YouTube channel, Sweet and Simple Home. I also have an Instagram, and I'm on there a lot. So you can find me. It's the same name, Sweet and Simple Home, and come over, say hi. I'd love to meet you. So find me there.
Awesome. We'll be sure to have it linked up in the show notes of this episode. Rachel, this has been amazing. We're so proud of you and your husband and the journey that you all have been on. You all have been persistent. You all have persevered. Yes. And you all are inspiring a ton of people. Continue on the journey that you're on, and we are cheering for you from the sidelines. Yes. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just been an absolute honor.